You know, Marius, it has nothing to do with ego here. It really doesn't. It has to do with philosophy, and it has to do with values. And we have to not be afraid as a community to set a flag in the ground and fight the good fight. We are not in this organization, in this movement, arguing for we're better than Ethereum. We are arguing the merits of this project on its own foundations. And we are saying who we are. We are saying this is the way we're going to do it. It's the Paul Halmos way of doing things. Tell them what you're going to do it, and tell them what you did. That's what we've been doing since the beginning. And every opportunity we have to point out explicitly that this is the case, we do it. It's not about fighting trolls. It's about burning into the brains of everybody who evaluates this project who we are. When we get criticized, we often get criticized by people who have different values. The price didn't go up, so you're a scam. This other project says X, Y, and Z, and it seems to be better on the ticket than you. We say, well, did they validate it? And they say, no. We say, well, then that's why we don't say those things. We could say crazy things. I could wake up tomorrow and make press and tweet, Hydra has 1 billion transactions per second. I could do that. And there would be a Cointelegraph article and all this other things, and there'd be all this hype. It wouldn't be real because it'd be asterisks. There would be a disclaimer. And when you actually try to implement it, you wouldn't get that performance. And we wrote blog posts explicitly explaining that this is a bad metric to think about these systems as. If the only decision metric you have is that vanity metric because you don't understand anything else, then when our competitor says they have 1 billion or 1 million or some number that's larger than ours, you say, they are better. Be them. Why aren't you them? You're inferior to them. And you're like, well, guys, you don't understand the game we're playing here. So it's not about ego. It's about saying this over and over again and defending the process. It is sacred. The process has to survive. It is the only way we're going to dig our ways out of the technical and scientific debt that we have. Every single protocol, bar none, today in market cannot scale to 1 billion users. That's just a fact. Anybody who tells you otherwise is Craig Wright. They're lying to you. They are pathological liars, or they're idiots. They don't understand what they're doing. This is where we're at. And the things that we would have to do as an industry to get to 1 billion users would require us to make trade-offs we as an industry are not willing to make. Mass centralization of the protocol to a collection of small actors, huge subsidies to certain people, special powers to special people, all kinds of things that would add enormous amounts of fragility to the system and basically trade Google 1 for Google 2. That's where we're at. The point of the process we've been following with Cardano is to use science to create a different path. So you can get to 1 billion users, but you don't have to have those insane trade-offs. You can create a decentralized system that's still functional and resilient and has all those principles that we've come to know and love with Bitcoin. Are we there yet? No. But the only way we're going to get there as an ecosystem, the whole thing, is through peer review. Why? Because the complexity of these protocols are beyond anything one human being can build. No human being alive can replicate the internet that we have today. Why? Because it's an emergent system that is the consequence of the labor of millions of people every day. Similarly, when you talk about protocols that will service the unique needs of 1 billion people, preserving very important principles like inclusive accountability and irreversibility and never throwing away data, all kinds of these things that are super draconian design restrictions and Byzantine resistance and dynamic and decentralized, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. No human being is smart enough, or small team is smart enough to come up with a set of protocols to do that today. So how do you do it? You turn it into a collective problem for all the universities in the world and all the bright people of the world to understand and work on. Just like cancer is a collective problem, HIV is a collective problem, going to space is a collective problem. And if it's understandable and it's stated in a culturally neutral, agnostic, decidable way that people really get and they can hold on to, then anyone can work on that without permission. Any graduate student, any professor, any engineer, and there is a meritocratic standard. When you publish your paper, nobody knows who you are. Nobody knows your credentials. You could be a high school dropout. You could be Sylvia Macaulay, a Turing Award winner. Doesn't matter, the spectrum. All they see is the title of the paper, the abstract, and the body of work. And it goes through that same channel as everybody else. And if you follow the rules, you can do that. And the point of projects like Cardano is that we are turning on every university to this concept and getting people interested throughout their entire professional lives to figure out how to preserve the principles we care about, but at the same time scale the system to billions of people and not give up the trade-offs. Who is being egotistical and arrogant and dishonest are the people in our industry who say we're already there and we've already achieved this. They're lying to you, and they're lying to you to make money from you. They're leading you down the road to hell. They're saying they have things we know they don't have because the science isn't there. The engineering is not there. There's no demonstrated protocol. I remember when EOS was saying things, 500,000 transactions per second. Just napkin calculations would tell you how absurd that statement is. 1 kilobyte transactions, 500,000. That's what, 500 megabyte block? 500 megabytes every second in your network? What kind of internet connection can relay that? How do you propagate that through the entire system? There are no protocols to do that in a replicated system, none. Without massive centralization, massive control by a small group of actors. Is that a cryptocurrency then? But they made these statements and raised money on these statements. This is where our competitors are at. This is what these people are doing in the industry. So I get all these trolls that come in and they parrot what they've heard. And what we do is we fight them, and then they somehow they find out little by little, they lose certainty and they start realizing that the propaganda that they've been inculcated with is wrong, or they don't. And if they don't, they get pushed out. It's an immune system. And if they do, they have an awakening and they realize that they're being treated dishonestly by the space as a whole. And at the very least, here's what's going to happen. They lose faith when the project doesn't deliver. If you claim you can do X and you can't do X, there's only so long you can give people the Kool-Aid before they die or they leave. And then when they leave, then who do they go back to? They go back to the people who were honest with them in the beginning, who told them the difficult truths. You can't break the laws of physics. There's no free lunch. If you want to get rid of the trade-offs, you have to do new things. You can't just take old things, package them up, put a new name on it, put a new coat of paint on it, pretend like you've invented something. No, no, no. You actually want to do it. There's no substitute for the hard work. And because it's a collective, enormous problem of a global scale, the only way you're going to solve that problem is making it accessible to as many people as possible and collectively solving the problem bit by bit, piece by piece. It's not sexy. We've written over 60 papers at IOHK. 60. That's a good academic career. 60 meaningful papers. We're the #1 company in the world for citations in the cryptocurrency space. If you look at our citations objectively, just go to Google, look at the papers, look at the citation counts, add them together, compare them to our competitors. Are we done? No. We've laid the foundations, and there are years to decades of work to get us to that utopia that we want to get to of 1 billion people. But the thing I'm confident about is the process is right. It's not ego. It's just thinking in terms of the Rolling Stone effect, the avalanche effect. Once you've started this, it's irreversible. It's a good idea. Guys, we went from nobody to a project that donated money to a United States university, a state school, and got not only the university, but the state to match funds with our currency. And we did that in just a few years from launch. And that lab is going to produce enormous value for that university. It's going to train great graduate students and give them great careers. It's going to create jobs in the state of Wyoming. It's going to produce academic peer-reviewed papers. It's going to create real products that are going to authenticate watches and shoes and other things. And more importantly, it's a small brick in a bigger wall that we're constructing that legitimizes a university working with this protocol. And in a very short period of time, no one's going to come to me. They're going to go right to the Treasury system, the students groups and the professors, and say, I want to do research in the Cardano protocol. And they're going to treat Cardano like the NSF. And what does that mean? We've just opened up the welcome mat for millions of academics across the world, every country on an equal playing ground, to collaborate and participate and have ideas and bring new concepts to our ecosystem. How the hell is Eth2 better than that? They don't have any mechanism to facilitate this. It's basically whoever's leading that project, who's ever in the inner circle, that's the extent of their mental capacity. And what we as a movement have done is created an inevitability that every university in the world can now participate and play in our sandbox. And all the future Einsteins, the future Fermis, the future Terry Taus, they can now look to us to fund their dreams and fund their research if it's relevant to our domain. And we get that forever. And there's no country that owns it. There's no intellectual property. There's no patents. It's yours as much mine. That's the system we've constructed, because that's what you get when you have principles. That's what you get when you tell people what you're going to do and you're honest about it and you do it. You might take more time to do it. You might find out that the road that you're on is shut down and you have to take a detour and go around, and it's a lot longer journey. But if you continue the discipline, the intellectual honesty, and most importantly, the process, you'll get there. And when you get there, you inspire other people to continue the journey with you. And those people, when they continue the journey with you time and again, what do? They bring new ideas, they bring new approaches, and inevitably they come up with that idea that cures the cancer, that idea that allows you to scale to 1 billion people and do it with the trade-offs that we as a community are willing to take. I will never tell you that this is an easy thing, a short-term thing. It is a philosophical thing, and it's a work thing. It's a discipline thing, and it's a process. And my job is to push the boulder down the hill. I had to push it all the way up to the top of the hill. We got it there, and we give just a little bit of a push. That first domino. That's why the tagline of IOHK is cascading disruption. This concept of a little bit of a push cascades and gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And 20 years from now, I will wake up and it's irreversible and inevitable. We have set the wheels in motion and we are there. And no one else has that. This is the core value proposition of Cardano. And it's why we get so passionate about these things. It's why we fight these things. And it's why we call these trolls out. Because we're trying to make the point and put the flag in the ground and get people there. And I will never apologize for that, ever. If you don't like the style, okay. You don't have to like it. There are other people in this project. There's other ideas in this project. There's many other leaders in this project. I'm just one of many voices. And I have a particular style and a particular way of doing things. But no means does it have a monopoly on this project as a whole. And if you like a different style, find that person attached to them. But you have to be in love with the process. And if you're not, it's not for you. Go do something else. Listen to the sweet little lies of our competitors.